Imagine finding a small British coin that looks almost completely ordinary. It is only a 2-pence piece. You may have seen hundreds of them, ignored them, or even dropped one into a jar without giving it a second thought. But what if I told you that the 1998 2-pence has a fascinating secret that many people never check? The date alone does not automatically make this coin rare or extremely valuable. But the metal, condition, variety, and possible errors can make a huge difference. And there is one particularly interesting reason why the 1998 2-pence deserves a closer look. During this year, 2 different metals were used for circulation versions of the coin. So before you decide that your old 2p is worth only 2 pence, take a closer look at what you actually have. Today, we are going to examine this 1998 British 2-pence coin from every angle. We will look at the design, the Queen's portrait, the famous Welsh Plumes reverse, the history behind the denomination, the unusual metal change, the difference between magnetic and non-magnetic examples, condition, varieties, errors, and finally what a coin like this may realistically be worth today. And most importantly, I will explain what you should check at home before you sell, spend, clean, or throw away an old 1998 2-pence. The coin shown here is a British 2-pence piece dated 1998. On the reverse, we can see the familiar Welsh Plumes design surrounded by the word 2 pence. The design features 3 feathers rising from a coronet, with the Welsh motto Ich Dien appearing on the scrolls. This is one of the most recognizable designs in British decimal coinage. Turn the coin over and you see the portrait of Queen Elizabeth. The inscription around her portrait reads, Elizabeth II DG Reg FD, a shortened Latin inscription traditionally used on British coinage. The portrait on this coin was designed by Ian Rank Broadley and belongs to the 4th portrait type of Elizabeth II used on British circulating coins. At first glance, there is nothing dramatic about this coin. It does not look like a famous commemorative coin. It does not have a spectacular design made from precious metal. It is not a large silver coin. It is simply a small denomination that was intended to be used every day, and that is exactly what makes coins like this interesting. Millions of ordinary coins were produced to move through shops, pockets, cash registers, vending machines, and banks. Most were never expected to become collectibles. But collectors know that ordinary circulation coins can sometimes become interesting because of unusual production details. The 1998 2-pence is a perfect example. One of the biggest reasons collectors pay attention to the 1998 2-pence is its composition. After 1992, British circulating 1p and 2p coins were generally produced using copper-plated steel instead of the traditional bronze composition. The change was made largely for production and cost reasons, but 1998 was unusual. In that year, 2-pence coins were produced in both bronze and copper-plated steel. Sources record approximately 6 million bronze circulation examples and about 154 million copper-plated steel examples. Check your change. That means the year 1998 gives collectors something very interesting to investigate. 2 coins can carry exactly the same denomination and date, look extremely similar, and yet behave differently when tested with a magnet. This is where the story becomes much more interesting. If you have a 1998 2-pence coin at home, one of the easiest things you can check is whether it responds to a magnet. A copper-plated steel coin should be magnetic because of its steel core. A bronze coin is not magnetic. So imagine finding 2 1998 2-pence coins in an old collection. They look almost identical. Both say 2 pence. Both show the Welsh Plumes. Both carry Queen Elizabeth II's portrait. Both have the same date. But one sticks to a magnet and the other does not. That does not automatically mean one is worth a fortune. This is very important. A magnetic 1998 2-pence is not automatically a rare jackpot coin, and a non-magnetic example is not automatically worth hundreds or thousands. Instead, the metal is one part of the identification process. The real collector's question is, what exactly is this coin? What condition is it in, and does it have anything unusual about its production? According to published mintage figures, the 1998 2-pence had substantial production numbers. The commonly cited figures are 98,000, 676,000 bronze coins and 154,000 copper-plated steel coins. Check your change. When you hear numbers like these, it immediately tells you something important. This is not a coin where simply finding the date 1998 makes it automatically rare. There were many millions made. And that distinction matters, because the internet is full of exaggerated claims about ordinary coins. You may see videos or posts claiming that a normal 1998 2p is worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions. But collectors should always separate a normal example from a genuine variety. Error, proof, or exceptional condition specimen, a normal circulated coin with scratches, marks, discoloration, and wear is a completely different proposition from a nearly perfect coin with an authenticated mint error. The date is only the beginning of the investigation. Now let's examine the reverse of the coin shown in the video. The first thing you notice is the large number 2 near the bottom. Above it is the Welsh Plumes design. The word 2 appears across the upper portion, while pence curves around the design. The Welsh Plumes have been associated with Welsh identity and the Prince of Wales. The design became one of the defining reverse designs of the British 2 pence denomination. Look closely at the details. The feathers, the coronet, the ribbons, the lettering, the beaded border around the edge. All of these elements were produced during the minting process using dies, and whenever coins are produced in huge numbers, tiny differences can occur. That is why collectors examine coins under magnification. A coin that looks completely normal from a distance can reveal interesting details under a good light and magnifying glass. Now turn the coin over. Here we see Queen Elizabeth II facing right. The portrait is surrounded by the inscription, Elizabeth II DG Reg FD. This particular portrait was designed by Ian Rank Broadley and was used on British circulation coins beginning in the late 1990s. The portrait itself is a major clue when identifying British decimal coins. For collectors, the combination of date plus portrait plus denomination plus metal plus design helps establish exactly what version of the coin they are looking at. This is why simply looking at the date is not enough. Two coins from the same year can have different characteristics, and 1998 is especially interesting because of its two-metal production. Now comes the question everyone wants answered. Is the 1998 2 pence rare? The honest answer is, the ordinary 1998 2 pence is not considered an extremely rare coin simply because it carries the 1998 date. There were over 200 million circulation pieces across the two recorded compositions. Check your change. That is a large number. However, rarity is not always about the total number originally produced. A coin can become more desirable because of its condition, a scarce variety, a genuine mint error, or collector demand. And this is where people often misunderstand coin values. A coin does not become valuable simply because it is old. A coin does not become valuable simply because it has Queen Elizabeth II on it. And a coin does not become valuable simply because somebody online claims that it is worth thousands. For a normal circulated 1998 2 pence, the value is generally modest. Numismatics indicative. Figures for the 1998, bronze and copper-plated. Steel versions are in the range of only a few cents to under $1. Depending on condition, with higher figures for uncirculated examples. These are guide values, not guaranteed selling prices. Numismatics. So if you have a heavily circulated 1998 2p with scratches and wear, don't expect it to suddenly be worth hundreds of dollars. But that does not mean you should stop looking. Because there are several things that can change the situation. Condition is one. Composition is another. Varieties and errors are another. And the biggest mistake a beginner can make is cleaning the coin before checking it. This is extremely important. If you discover an old coin and think it looks dirty, your first instinct might be to polish it. Do not do that if you are interested in its collector value. Cleaning can leave scratches and remove the original surface. A coin that looks dull but has its original surface may be more desirable to collectors than a coin that has been aggressively polished. The natural brown appearance of an old bronze coin is not necessarily damage. In fact, that color can be part of the coin's natural patina. So if your 1998 2 pence looks brown, dark or uneven, don't immediately reach for chemicals, polish, toothpaste, vinegar, or other household methods. Put it down, inspect it, photograph it, identify it, and only then decide what to do. This is one of the most interesting tests you can perform on a 1998 2p. Take a small magnet. Place the coin near it. If the coin is attracted to the magnet, it is consistent with the copper-plated steel version. If it does not respond to the magnet, it may be the bronze version. But remember, the magnet test is an identification clue, not a value guarantee. You should never assume that a non-magnetic coin is automatically a rare treasure. The next step is to inspect the coin's weight and dimensions using appropriate equipment and compare them with reliable catalog information. A genuine bronze coin and a copper-plated steel coin can differ in weight because their compositions are different. For a serious collector, a digital scale accurate to at least 0.01 gram can be useful. But even then, measurements should be considered alongside the coin's appearance and other identifying characteristics. Imagine two 1998 2-pence coins. Coin number 1 spent years circulating. It was dropped on the pavement. It passed through thousands of hands. It was carried in pockets. It was placed on counters. It has scratches. The highest points of the design are worn. The lettering is less sharp. The surface has marks. Now imagine coin number 2. It was struck, placed into a collection or mint set, and barely handled. The original details remain sharp. The surface is clean but not artificially polished. The edges are strong. The design has excellent definition. Even though both coins carry the same date, collectors may view them very differently. This is why grading matters. Terms such as good, very fine, extremely fine, about uncirculated and uncirculated describe levels of preservation. A coin's value can change dramatically when its condition moves from heavily circulated to exceptionally preserved. But again, the market decides what buyers are actually willing to pay. Now let's talk about errors. This is where many coin videos become confusing. Not every unusual-looking coin is a valuable mint error. A true mint error happens during the manufacturing process. Examples can include major off-center strikes, clipped planchets, dramatic die breaks, double strikes, wrong planchet errors, or other documented production mistakes. But damage that happens after a coin leaves the mint is not the same thing. For example, if someone scratches the date with a sharp object, that is damage. If the coin is bent, that is damage. If somebody drills it, stamps it, heats it, or chemically alters it, that is damage. Collectors generally do not treat these things as desirable mint errors. The key is understanding the difference between mint-made and post-mint damage. Examining the date. The date is one of the first places collectors look. On this coin, the date is clearly 1998. Look carefully at the individual numbers. Are they evenly formed? Do they appear normal for the type? Is there doubling? Is there unusual spacing? Is there an apparent overdate? Is there a strange shape caused by damage? This is where magnification becomes useful. However, online photographs can sometimes create illusions. A shadow can look like doubling. A scratch can look like an extra digit. A reflection can make lettering appear distorted. That is why serious attribution requires good lighting, sharp photographs, and comparison with known examples. There is a major problem in modern coin collecting. People often hear a story like this. Someone found an ordinary coin and sold it for thousands. Then they assume every coin of that date must be valuable. But that's not how the market works. If one unusual example sells for a high price, that does not mean every example of the same date is worth the same amount. The exact variety matters. The grade matters. The buyer matters. The auction environment matters. And most importantly, the coin must actually possess the characteristic that made the expensive example special. So if you own a 1998 2-pence, don't panic and don't get too excited based only on the date. The 2-pence denomination has been part of Britain's decimal currency system since decimalization in 1971. The introduction of decimal coinage dramatically changed everyday British money. Instead of the old pounds, shillings, and pence system, Britain moved to a decimal system. The 2-pence coin became one of the basic denominations people encountered every day. Over the decades, the coin appeared in countless transactions. It paid for small items. It was dropped into charity boxes. It sat in pockets. It collected in drawers. It was stored in jars. It traveled from person to person. And every one of those coins carried a tiny piece of British monetary history. That is why collectors enjoy them even when their monetary value is low. A coin does not have to be worth hundreds of pounds to be interesting. The reverse design is particularly attractive because of its Welsh connection. The 3 feathers and coronet have a long association with the Prince of Wales. The motto Ich Dien is German for I serve. The design gives the otherwise simple 2-pence coin a strong heraldic character. When you look at this coin today, you are not just looking at a number 2. You are looking at a design that connected British currency with heraldic tradition. That is one reason the reverse remains instantly recognizable. There is another reason the 1998 date is interesting. From a historical perspective, think about what was happening around the world in 1998. The internet was becoming increasingly important. Mobile phones were becoming more common. People were still buying CDs and VHS tapes. Digital technology was changing everyday life. And this little 2-pence coin was moving through that world. Someone may have received this exact coin as change from a shop in 1998. A child might have put it into a piggy bank. A parent might have left it in a drawer. Someone else might have spent it decades later. Eventually, it could end up in a collector's hands. That journey is part of what makes ordinary coins fascinating. There are several situations in which you should investigate further. First, if the coin is in unusually high condition. Second, if its composition is unusual or does not match what you would expect. Third, if you see a possible major mint error. Fourth, if the coin shows a known die variety. Fifth, if it came from a mint set or proof set and has unusually strong quality. And sixth, if you have reason to believe the coin is not an ordinary circulation strike. But don't rely on a single photograph or a random online price. Compare the coin with reputable references. Look for auction records. Check specialist catalogs. And if you believe you have a genuinely significant error, consider professional authentication. This is perhaps the most important lesson from this coin. A 1998 coin is now decades old. But age alone does not make it rare. There are millions of coins from the 1990s still in collections. Jars, drawers, and sometimes circulation. Rarity is about availability relative to demand. A coin can be old but common. A coin can be relatively modern but scarce. And a coin can be common in normal condition but rare in an exceptional. Variety or grade, that is the difference between simply collecting dates and actually understanding numismatics. If this exact coin were sitting in front of me, I would go through a simple process. First, I would confirm the date. Second, I would examine the portrait. Third, I would inspect the reverse design. Fourth, I would test the coin with a magnet. Fifth, I would weigh it using an accurate scale. Sixth, I would examine the surfaces under magnification. Seventh, I would check the date and lettering for unusual characteristics. Eighth, I would inspect the edge for damage or unusual features. And finally, I would compare it with documented examples. That process is much more reliable than simply searching the internet for 1998 2p worth. So what makes this particular coin worth talking about? It is not simply the number 1998. It is the combination of history and production. This was a year when two different compositions were used for the circulating 2-pence. The coin carries the fourth portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. It features the famous Welsh Plumes, and millions of examples were made, giving collectors an opportunity to compare different pieces and look for unusual specimens. Check your change. That makes the 1998 2-pence a fascinating coin for beginners. It teaches you that collecting is not always about finding a coin that immediately looks rare. Sometimes the interesting detail is hidden in the metal. Sometimes it is hidden in the condition. Sometimes it is in a tiny production mistake. And sometimes the real value is simply in understanding what you have. Let's make the value question very clear. If your 1998 2-pence is a normal circulated example, you should not expect a huge price. Published collector guides show low indicative values for ordinary circulated examples, while better preserved examples can bring somewhat more. These figures are guides rather than guaranteed market prices. Numista. A genuine error or unusual variety can be different. A highly preserved example can be different. A professionally authenticated unusual coin can be different. And a coin with an interesting provenance or collectible context can also attract more attention. But don't let exaggerated online claims convince you that every 1998 2-pence is a hidden fortune. So the next time you see an old British 2-pence sitting in a drawer, don't immediately throw it into a spending jar. Pick it up. Look at the date. Look at the portrait. Turn it over. Study the Welsh Plumes. Check the condition. And if it is dated 1998, remember that this particular year has an interesting composition story. Try the magnet test. If you have the right equipment, check the weight. Use magnification. Look for genuine abnormalities. And most importantly, don't clean it. You may discover that your coin is simply a normal example worth only a small amount. And that's completely fine. Because every collector starts somewhere. The important thing is, Learning how to recognize what makes one coin different from another. Maybe your 1998 two pence is ordinary. Maybe it has an interesting composition. Maybe it has a variety. Maybe it has a genuine mint error. Or maybe it simply tells a small story about Britain at the end of the 20th century. So before you spend that old 2p, take another look. Because the real treasure is not always the coin with the biggest number printed on a price guide. Sometimes it is the tiny detail that almost everyone else missed. If you have a 1998 two pence, check whether it is magnetic, examine its condition, and look closely at the date, lettering, and design. And if you discover something unusual, don't clean the coin or rush to sell it. Take clear photographs, compare it with reliable references, and get a second opinion from an experienced collector or professional if necessary. Because one simple rule can save you from making a costly mistake. Never spend an unusual coin before you know exactly what you have. And that is what makes this little 1998 British two pence so interesting. It may look like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but once you understand its history, its two different compositions, its design, and the possibilities hidden in condition and errors, you realize that even a two pence coin can tell a much bigger story. So check your old jars. Check your drawers. Check your inherited collections. Check the coins you almost ignored. Because sometimes, the most interesting discovery is hiding in the place you least expected.